The next point on their timeline is that the media is attacking the March 2016 place where Biden has the Ukrainian prosecutor general fired. You are going to love this one. This is the prosecutor that was working for the Ukrainians, and he was fine until he started looking into Burisma. Now, the fired prosecutor said that the reason he was fired was due to that fact that he was investigating Burisma. I've shown you his sworn testimony in a European court that backs all of this up. By the way, everything is available at glennbeck.com. You can go there and you'll find the big chalkboard like this one. All you have to do is just click on it. You click on one of these bubbles or boxes and all of the information is there. Read it for yourself. Do your own homework. Now, the left disputes this. They say there was no active investigation in Burisma at that time. They also say that backs up their case that Shokin was fired because that was a dormant investigation. He wasn't investigating other cases that he should have been. Here is Jake Tapper in a debate with Congressman Jim Jordan making the case that everyone in the media is parroting. Watch.
Was that prosecutor looking into Burisma, the company that had hired Joe Biden's son for $50,000?
According to the Ukrainians, yes. That investigation was dormant at the time.
That was dormant. Now, if that's true, that takes some of this apart, pokes a few holes in it, okay? Now, if you're hearing this from all of the media, you're like, I bet Glenn got that one wrong. I mean, I even thought some of these things we got wrong because it was everywhere. But you notice how Tapper used the word dormant. Sounds familiar because NBC is using that word dormant, and the Associated Press and Business Insider. Forbes broke the mold, said the investigation was inactive. But they're all making the same point. So let's look for attribution. Let's do our own homework. Well, you wind up where this entire claim originated from. It began with an article from Bloomberg. Let me quote the article. But what has received less attention is that at the time Biden made his ultimatum, the probe into the company, Burisma Holdings, owned by Mykola Joleski, had long been dormant. Long been dormant, according to former official Casco. Well, this is all it took, the media. I mean, they'd had that. That's why they used the word dormant. They got it there. It's everywhere, okay? They take that face value in its entirety to claim there was no active investigation in Burisma. It had long been dormant. No questioning, no fact-finding on their own. Somebody did the job. I'm just going to use that word. This was the reference that they used as definitive proof. So we didn't really think that that was enough. I mean, I'm sure Michael Bloomberg is a good guy and he only hires the best, but I thought maybe we should do some actual cross-checking on this claim. I mean, it was used by Jake Tapper in a debate with a congressman directly involved in the impeachment inquiry. So it seems important, no? Casco, the Ukrainian that told this to Bloomberg, was a deputy working for Shokin. We looked through the Ukrainian press, who actually does their job from time to time, to find out anything at all we could on their relationship between Casco and his boss. Turns out, they had kind of a bad relationship, very contentious. Shokin gave an interview to this Ukrainian outlet where he claimed that Casco was being bribed with his job. He claims that Casco was working with Biden to undermine him. Okay. I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's like arguing about a divorce. I have no idea. That right there, though, does put a little wrinkle, maybe a little boop, boop, speed bump in the investigation was dormant narrative, because you only got that guy saying it. It calls into the question the credibility of the one person making that claim. But that's just, Shokin's word against his rival. So we had to move on. How can we check? Reading further, this is how difficult it was. We had to read that article further, where Shokin said this, and I quote, "I finally crossed the threshold meaning somebody is saying, hey, don't do this. I finally crossed the threshold on February 2nd, 2016, when we went to the courts with petitions for rearresting the property of Burisma. I suppose then the president received another call from Biden, blackmail by non-provision of a loan. Then Poroshenko surrendered. He also said, interestingly enough, quote, we were going to interrogate Biden Jr., Archer, and so on. Now, again, well, that's him saying it. We have any proof? Well, I want you to look at the date. It's February 2nd, 2016, a full month, but not long dormant, a full month before Biden got Shokin fired. That's a pretty big claim. If true, it would prove that there was an active investigation into Burisma, and there were plans for Hunter Biden to be called in personally for questioning. Gosh, if there was only some collaboration that you could find, it would completely dismantle the media's narrative that there wasn't an active investigation going on at the time, right? Okay, so my little staff, we reached out to Ukraine to see, could we get a hold of the official court documents from that date, February 2nd, 2016, to see if that's what Shokin did? Well, they're not going to let us have those. Crap. We should give up. Or we should see if there's some other way to verify this. Turns out this is not a secret. Media reports all over the Ukraine at the time, widely known and reported on at that time. I'm going to show you this. It's an archived report from Interfax Ukraine detailing that the Prosecutor General Shokin had filed a petition in court to seize the property of Burisma head Jolachevsky. And look at the date. Look at it one more time. Come on, look at it. Look at it. Show it. Where is it? There it is. Look at that. PGO Prosecutor General's office clarified the court satisfied the petition on February 2nd, 2016, the exact same day that Shokin stated in the interview that he began, quote, rearresting the property of Burisma. Oh, Jake Tapper. Looks like somebody wasn't doing homework for you. Who's watching your back, Jack? So there was an active investigation into Burisma. And according to Shokin, bringing in Hunter Biden for questioning was the next step. So that looks like that helps our chalkboard and our narrative, not theirs. Come on, media. Come on. You're letting us do all of this? I mean, have you no shame? How do you sleep at night? Not because you're lying to America and then just digging a hole for the Republic and shoveling dirt on it every day. No. You're letting us best you and make you look like idiots. And this is your full-time job. This isn't even my full-time job. I'm part-time doing this. Again, I refer back to the 5 core principles. Again, all of these broken, not following the principles or the guidelines, purposely leading you into a very dark place where democracy dies. The next debunk of this timeline has been used a lot lately in news articles. Fact checks, pundits on TV. I think we even have giraffes at some major zoos saying, oh, you got that fact wrong. Well, it's probably the most misleading fabrication I've ever seen by the mainstream media. A large part of the story is how Obama and his administration was strong-arming the Ukrainian government by telling them who they could and couldn't investigate. The U.S. policy at the time was that Soros-funded NGOs and various other people of interest to them, like the head of Burisma, were off limits to the Ukrainian prosecutors. It was first reported earlier this year by that evil guy, John Solomon, that the former prosecutor general of Ukraine was being told who he could and couldn't investigate by the U.S. ambassador. Now, the U.S. ambassador I know is a super swell person who never could lie. She's the best ever because she just testified. And while none of us could hear her testimony, we did hear some of the things she had to say that was bad about Donald Trump. Of course, nobody was allowed to cross-examine her, but she's super, super great. Okay, I want you to watch this interview. Okay, just watch.
From another hand, it is true that I had some difficult personal relationship with the Miss Ambassador. Unfortunately, from the first meeting with the U.S. Ambassador in Kiev, Miss Ambassador gave me a list of people whom we should not prosecute.
Oh, the lying liars, and the lies those liars tell. I want you to keep something in mind here. This prosecutor is the one that took the place of the man that Joe Biden had fired. So when Joe Biden was bragging about it, and he said, and we got a good guy in there, this is the good guy. They claimed Shokin was corrupt, even though they never, ever brought a single specific claim against him at all. But the new guy, Lutsenko, that you just saw, one of the good guys. Now, the good guys was now saying exactly the same thing his now fired predecessor had said, that he was being told not to investigate the head of Burisma, the Soros NGO, and a slew of others. Now, if the media was actually doing their jobs and being impartial here, they'd make the point that this statement would at least appear to corroborate the now deposed prosecutor that Biden had removed. They're saying the same thing. But did they do that? They instead, let's see, how do I put this respectfully? They lied their ass off to the American people. The media started blatantly making stuff up, writing their own fabricated story to hide what really happened. They initiated one of the most misleading lies I think I've ever seen from the media. The media began making the claim that Lutsenko retracted his statement, that there wasn't a do not prosecute list. I remember, I listen and read the New York Times, the Washington Post, so you don't have to. And I'm reading them, and I'm listening to the Daily, and I hear them say, well, that was just recanted. He took that back. And I came into the office, and I'm like, what? Guys, can you help me out on this? How did we miss this? The Washington Post ran an insanely slanderous story attacking John Solomon, claiming he, quote, foisted a bogus story. One of their biggest points in that was Lutsenko, the guy you just saw, went back on his statement regarding the do not prosecute list. Now, the Post uses this to slam the Hill, saying, quote, there's no update correction to the Hill article to note that Lutsenko had retracted this allegation. Wow, that sounds bad. So there's the Post saying it, and I heard it on the New York Times. Why didn't Solomon or the Hill or anybody offer a correction? Because I'm going to have to. I mean, if this is true, it would break a large chunk of our claims regarding the Democrats in Ukraine. And that is exactly why the media is going so hard on it. But I don't take anybody's word. I do my own homework. What bothered me was, how were we duped? How did we miss this? How would a prosecutor who would know full well the implications of making such a grand claim and then go back and say, you know what, never mind, kind of made that one all up. Why would he do that? It makes no rational sense. So we began to try to track down this retraction. Oh, watch this one. The New York Times linked to the Post. The Post linked to the Wall Street Journal as their evidence. And the Journal just simply states, Mr. Lutsenko later retracted the allegation. Okay, well, can you show me where? Where's the attribution? Where's the evidence? Where does this come from? If the media is going to accept this as gospel truth, shouldn't they at least show the footnote? Let us know where they got this? This is a huge part of the overall story, right? So we kept looking. One of the most widely used links provided as evidence that there was a retraction comes from this Ukrainian news site. It's also referenced in factcheck.org's master timeline of everything you need to know in the Ukraine scandal. And so they, of course, say that Lutsenko recanted. But let's check out the source. Now, The headline says exactly what everybody thinks. Ukraine Prosecutor General Lysenko admits U.S. ambassador did not give him a do not prosecutor list. Oh my gosh, Glenn Beck, your whole chalkboard is going to fall apart. Sounds bad until you read their source. This article is referencing an interview that Lysenko gave to the Ukrainian news site, The Babel. The interviewer asks specifically, very specifically, about the meeting with the U.S. ambassador. Lysenko states that after he and his staff told her, the people they were investigating, the following occurred. Quote, she said that this is unacceptable. They say it will undermine the credibility of the anti-corruption activists. I want you to remember that for episode 3. I took a piece of paper and recorded the surnames that she had announced and said, dictate a list of involatile persons. She says, no, you misunderstood me. I said, no, I understood you correctly. Previous such lists were written in presidential administration on Bankova, and you offer new lists from Tankova, the U.S. Embassy. The meeting is over. I'm afraid the emotions were not very good, end quote. So where's the retraction? The ambassador did not give him a list. She gave him a list, and he wrote it down. She didn't slide a piece of paper. So it's all a lie. He retracted that. She never gave him that list. Oh my gosh, you are kidding me. They never mentioned the fact that it was verbally dictated and he wrote the list down himself. Are you kidding me? This is how the media is fact-checking and debunking. They are playing with our republic and Ukraine's republic. They are planting dynamite all around everything that we hold dear. And how do they sleep at night? Everyone that now reads their stories actually thinks that there was a retraction of one of the most damning parts of this entire case. You must blow that up, or you can't use the ambassador as a credible witness to say anything about Donald Trump. Now, I've been in this business for over 40 years, but I've never seen something this misleading and this dishonest from all members of the media. It is crap like this that the mainstream, and I'm not going to say media anymore, the mainstream propaganda is using to slander good journalists who worked for the New York Times, Washington Post, and the AP, John Solomon. There is literally nothing you can trust from the mainstream propaganda ever again. You must do your own homework. Now, I could stop here, because I think this is all you need to know regarding the reliability of these so-called fact checks. But I have to do one more because, like the others, this is one of their main points in trying to poke holes in the case. The timeline shows a pretty convincing case that the DNC was colluding with the Ukrainians to undermine the Trump campaign. It looks like this really kicked into high gear in January 2016, with the Obama administration meeting with prosecutors in Ukraine at the White House and with the DNC and Chalupa working with the Ukrainian embassy in D.C. And even though there is news to the media here in the U.S., Ukrainian lawmakers have been bragging about doing it back in their own country for years. This is a member of the Ukrainian parliament who was one of the 2 men who were actually convicted in court for interfering with the 2016 U.S. election. There's an article that was written back in August 2016, 3 months before Americans headed to the polls. Lysenko straight up told the Financial Times that he was attacking Trump because, quote, a Trump presidency would change the pro-Ukrainian agenda in American foreign policies. He is a pro-Russian candidate who can break the geopolitical balance in the world, end quote. No secret that this guy was working with the head of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau that our government insisted that they set up with NGOs.